All together now. Reunion. Chief Jackson sits in his office typing away on his laptop. He wasn't paranoid. He was aggravated. Aggravated at the fact that many officers and several civilians were hurt and injured because of the criminal scum that plagues New York. Chief thinks about his idea of creating the hero team, and it makes him feel better. Although, he still feels the urgency. Lance, Connor, Hero, and Annika walk into the station fully suited up. The officers and staff greet them happily as they walk up to the Officer Davenport at the front desk. "Hey, Armored Arachnid, who are your friends?" the officer says while raising his eyebrows. Hero and Annika introduce themselves before the officer makes a dry joke about Hero and Annika's powers. "Not every day we see fire and water working together, huh?" the chief laughs to himself before pointing the team to Chief Jackson's office. The chief sits in his chair and contemplates. Those officers doubt in his watch. He looks down at his badge that he holds in his hand. It feels oddly heavy, but it feels right. He thinks about all he did to deserve his place as the chief of NYPD before quickly putting his badge back on. Just then, Lance, Connor, Hero, and Annika walk into his office. They all have a seat as Lance retracts his mask and pulls down his hood. He sits down and looks at Chief Jackson. "Is this the team, Lance?" Chief asks. Lance nods and asks Chief how he's doing. "I'm alright, Lance. I just want to find the guy who blew up the station and make him pay," Chief says as he sits up and steps toward his window. "Well, here we are. Your mission has just been made much easier," Annika says, standing up and pointing toward herself. "I'm Annika, by the way," she says energetically. Chief turns around and smiles at Annika. In a way, he sees the daughter he never had. Chief Jackson turns around and sternly asks Connor what they've gotten. "There was a stolen shipment of Roxanne oil. I had to fight my way to it. The theory is that it might have been used as a substitute for explosive liquid," Connor says while leaning forward in his chair. Chief Jackson nods his head and looks over at Lance. "And you, Lance?" he asks. Lance nods and explains his theory. "I saw Audrey about some residue that I found at the explosion site. According to her, the explosive was a combination of generic explosive liquid and a certain chemical from Rand Oil and Chemicals," Lance says. "Do you have a sample?" Chief asks as he raises his eyebrows. "I stopped off at Audrey's lab on the way here and grabbed it," Lance says, grabbing the small forensics bag and handing it to the chief. The chief takes the bag and looks at Lance and Connor. "This is good. This is great," she says with a brighter voice. "Excuse me, if we're going to be a team, shouldn't we have a name?" Hero asks softly. Chief glances at Hero. "You know, I was actually going to ask you guys about that. Any ideas?" the chief asks. "Maybe the Defenders," Connor says while leaning back in his chair. "That team already existed a few years ago," Chief chimes in. "Okay, the New Defenders," Connor replies while tilting his head a little. "Have some originality about yourself, Connor," Hero tells him. "There's 4 of us. How about the Fantastic Four?" Hero says. The room erupts in a short burst of laughter as Hero looks around in slight confusion. "Hero, that sounds like a cartoon my mom would have watched when she was little," Annika says with slight laughter in her voice. "Alright," Lance says. "The year is 2025, isn't it?" he asks as he sits up. Everyone nods their head. "And together, we're a force of heroes trying to do the right thing. So, why don't we call ourselves Force 25? Force 25. "That sounds good, Lance," Hero says with a smile. Annika agrees. "It's got a nice ring to it, and it rolls off the tongue," she says. Connor nods. I guess so," Connor says before letting out a chuckle. Chief sits back in his chair and looks at his team. "These kids are going to bring good to New York," he thinks to himself. Anna Davison sits at her dining room table and enjoys some lunch. She takes a bite from her ham and cheese sandwich while scrolling through her phone, and a new post from the Armored Arachnid fan page catches her eye. She quickly scrolls back up and sees the 4 members of the newly formed Force 25 leaving the precinct. Anna smiles, looks at the picture, and she sees a red heart drawn around the Armored Arachnid and Aqua, who are walking beside each other in the picture. Anna's eyes widen as she reads the caption. "I ship it. Kamala." Anna grins. "Huh, so this must be who Annika is," Anna says as she sends the post to Lance. Lance's phone vibrates as he gets a message from Anna. He opens his phone and sees the post. He laughs and looks at Annika. "Hey Annika, look at what my sister just sent me," Lance says as he hands his phone to Annika. "Wait, seriously?" Annika says with a laugh. Hero and Connor look at Lance before Hero asks what he's laughing about. Lance's fan account ships Aqua and the Armored Arachnid, Annika says to Hero and Connor. "Well, to be honest, You guys wouldn't look bad together, Connor says as he shifts his eyes between Lance and Annika. Lance shakes his head as Annika tries to stifle a laugh, as Lance turns away from Connor. We're literally just friends, Lance says while shaking his head. Hiro grins and says that it doesn't have to stay that way. Lance rolls his eyes. You sound like my dad, he says. Suddenly, Hiro notices multiple police units leave the station heading toward a bank. Nani ka hakote aru? Hiro says as he looks out the window. Let's follow them, Lance, Connor says sternly. Lance shifts his car in a drive and follows the police convoy. Meanwhile, at the bank, Shocker comes out of the vault with 2 duffel bags of cash in his hands. The police begin to move into the bank but get knocked back by Shocker. A few go flying into the street, while one gets sent flying into his car. Civilians and pedestrians stop to watch. We need backup on my position, the cop says in a strained voice. His leg is broken and he can't move. Suddenly, his prayer is answered as Force 25 arrives. The group get out of Lance's car and Hiro runs over to the cop. What's the situation? Hiro says worriedly. Shocker's in the bank. He's got the money. You gotta stop him. The cop says, trying to stand up. How can I? Your leg is broken, Hiro says as he shakes his head. You need to get out of here, Hiro says before he radios the chief. Heat Seeker, this is Chief Glenn Jackson. What's the problem? Chief asks calmly. A wounded officer. Get somebody to send paramedics if you can, Hiro says as he shuts off his radio. Force 25 walks side by side into the bank. The giant stone pillars are collapsed and the chandelier hangs loosely from the ceiling. Shocker shakes his head. Stupid pigs, he laughs to himself as he keeps walking. Suddenly, Force 25 appears in front of him. Shocker, you should stand down and come quietly, Connor says as he aims his tactical rifle at Shocker. Shocker drops the duffel bags and laughs to himself as he slowly walks to the right. And who are y'all? Some Walmart Avengers team? Shocker says with laughter in his voice. The group begin to walk to their right as well. Shocker and Force 25 circle the room. We are not the Avengers. We're Force 25, and the Northeast Soldier just told you to come quietly. You probably should listen, Lance says as he reaches for his stun gun. I see you stole the cash from the vault. Do you even know how much is in those bags? Annika says while tilting her head and shrugging her shoulders. Shocker laughs. Nah, but it's more than I need and less than I want. This is just a little something small to get me into this whole bank robbing game, Shocker says smugly as he begins to charge his gauntlets for an attack. Connor notices this and begins to raise his gun. Well, it's all digital now, Lance says as he shoots the web at Shocker's right-hand gauntlet. So we're gonna need you to put the cash back, Lance adds. Ain't happening, Shocker says as he fires a blast at Force 25. The group moves out of the way as Lance shoots a web at the chandelier and swings across the room, kicking Shocker into a wall. Shocker recovers quickly and begins to fire a blast at the ceiling. Lance repeatedly dodges the attacks, moving rapidly between the falling debris on the ceiling. Shocker is distracted with Lance, and Connor sees this as an opportunity. He aims his gun at Shocker and opens fire. Non-lethal rounds? All y'all are a joke. Bunch of kids playing dress-up. Shocker aggressively yells as he turns his focus to Connor. I'm not gonna kill you. That's not what we're here for. We're here to put you behind bars, Connor says before throwing a flash grenade. Shocker is disoriented, blinded, and deafened by the flashbang. Hiro suddenly runs up to Shocker and knees him in the groin. Shocker kneels over and Hiro quickly shoots his left blowtorch into Shocker's face before shoving him onto the ground. Shocker lays still for a second before turning over and quickly shooting a blast at Hiro. Hiro goes flying and skips along the ground as he lands. Shocker looks as if he's about to shoot a finishing blast at Hiro before he gets knocked to the ground by a wave of water. Annika lowers her hands with a smirk, as Shocker slowly turns to Annika and walks toward her. Lance watches this from the ceiling and shoots 2 webs down at Shocker. He manages to lift Shocker up off the ground using leverage from the chandelier. Now, Aqua! Lance yells. Annika spins around before pushing her hands out toward the levitated Shocker. A huge wave of water approaches him as he goes flying out of the bank and into the street, where a crowd of law enforcement and civilians watch the spectacle. Shocker turns over and sees the people looking at him. He grits his teeth and attempts to get up before Lance shoots him with his stun gun. Shocker gets shocked and falls to the ground as Force 25 walks over to him. Shocker turns his head and looks at Lance in anticipation. What do I even call y'all? Shocker asks weakly. Lance gets down on one knee and stares at Shocker for a second before answering. We are Force 25.